Hey guys, in a recent debate on Piers Morgan's show, Jonathan Conricus took on Candace Owens and Cenk Uygur um, in a pretty epic debate where they're talking about the Hezbollah pagers, and there were a lot of heated moments throughout the entire debate. And this is about 30-minute clip. This is the full clip, basically the full where they're talking about Israel, and it's definitely worth a watch. So check it out.
Now to this other huge story in the last 24 hours, the blasts currently rocking the Lebanon. I'm joined in the studio by the former IDF spokesman, Jonathan Conricus. We'll still have Candace Owens with, and hopefully we'll get Cenk Uygur back from wherever he was beamed just now. No conspiracy theories here. We think he just lost connection. Jonathan, presumably Israel did this.
Presumably, yes. I would say that is very reasonable to assess.
And it is one of the more outlandish things that I've ever seen executed. I mean, just purely from an operational point of view, staggeringly successful. Yeah. They seem to have infiltrated these new devices.
In a viral tweet, Piers Morgan actually wrote that this operation is totally nuts, leaving it for interpretation. But so he definitely thinks that this is pretty crazy. I think in the beginning it starts off slow. So let's jump ahead to where Candace and Jonathan have a little bit of an exchange.
On call and Hezbollah, and I think we should say that.
Fair game. If primarily the people who were targeted, almost all of them appear to have been Hezbollah.
Well, I think a question that I immediately want to ask him, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to, is that if you're able to delineate how surgical and precise these operations can be with the intelligence that you have, why are there 40,000 dead innocent women and children and civilians in Gaza? Because that's a question that I've always had. You know, we keep hearing the...
First of all, there are not 40,000 dead. That's a Hamas number. And the real number is probably somewhere between 25 and 28,000 dead, because around 13 to 16,000 terrorists have been eliminated. And that's a low estimate.
Excuse that behind every one of these victims is a Hamas soldier, but there's not 40,000 dead Hamas soldiers. And if the excuse is that there's...
So it's a Hamas soldier, not a Hamas terrorist. Remember that. She said soldier, not terrorist.
The tunnel under there, I mean, just me thinking logically through engineering, you would only have to hit a tunnel at a couple of points to render it ineffective. So I'm just interested in why you guys can perform surgical procedures, but seemingly not in Gaza, where it looks like just an absolute war zone and buildings and hospitals and children and women are dead.
By the way, before he even responds, she wrote multiple times on Twitter, and I'll even show you the tweets if I can. I'll even show you the tweets where she explicitly writes throughout the day, literally attacking Israel. Here we go. I'll pull it up. Hold on. So she was attacking Israel way before this. If it were iPhones that were leaving the factory with explosives inside, the media would be a hell of a lot faster to cotton on to what a horrific precedent has been set at today. Nothing can justify this. It's a crime, and everyone in the world is less safe for it. She said exactly this. Okay, so she reshared a tweet basically saying how disgusting the attack was. So she would have still criticized Israel regardless of the fact that one or two civilians were killed.
Yeah.
Point. Let's get a response from Jonathan. It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question, and I appreciate it. And I'd like to make a comparison. I'm sure that you follow events and you're very interested in what happens in Israel and with what our enemies are doing, and I see that. But I'm sure that you know that until this cyber operation that Israel reportedly did, Israel was able to kill more than 500 Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, throughout Lebanon. Now, I haven't seen you tweet about it or any of the other people who usually support the other side. But if you take a look at how many civilians were killed in Lebanon as a result, as an unfortunate byproduct of Israeli strikes, and if you compare that to the situation in Gaza, I think that what you will find is it's the same IDF, the same operating procedures that we have in Gaza, only that here in Lebanon, until now, the situation is that Hezbollah has so far distinguished itself from civilian population, and they haven't been fighting from within cities. And as such, when the IDF has deployed lethal weapons against them, then terrorists have been killed and not civilians. And it's not because it's a different IDF. It's because, as you said, you used the word excuses. I would call it a reason and the sad reality of Hamas using Gazan population as their human shields, which I think is deplorable. And if you claim to be a defender of Palestinians and Arabs and other people, and you have that in your heart, and I think that your criticism should be pointed first and foremost towards Hamas and all of the other cowards who are using Palestinians as their human shields, who are afraid to fight out in the open, who are firing rockets from schools, and who are using mosques as their launch pads against Israel. That, I think, is despicable, and that should be condemned, not the...
So just to clarify, if you haven't been following, she asked him why Israel can't replicate what it did with Hezbollah, with Hamas in Gaza, and kill less civilians and really just, only kill the terrorists, because mostly terrorists were killed in this recent attack against Hezbollah. His response is that Hamas has embedded itself in the civilian population separate from what Hezbollah does, which is not embed itself, at least at this moment.
fact that we are going in there to fight them after they attacked us on October the 7th.
I
but by all
didn't
means,
issue a condemnation. I didn't issue a condemnation. I asked you a question and you just delivered me the same talking points that we always hear.
She didn't even listen to anything you said, or she's biding time because she realizes that she doesn't have a fucking answer, meaning she got caught in basically... meaning he gave her a great answer and she has nothing to respond.
You didn't actually provide me an answer.
I actually
if
did.
You are
I gave
able
you an
to go
explanation.
into a foreign country, you guys you have control over the Gaza Strip, right? It's
No.
a part of Israel.
No, it isn't.
If you are
No.
able to go into a country like Lebanon where you don't have control, where you can't just shut off their water, where you can't be monitoring people's actions in the same way, within the same proximity to Israel, why are you unable to similarly perform a surgical operation to locate where exactly those Hamas soldiers are? And by the way, do you have a number for how many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Right. So, I mean, you either weren't listening or
Can you
maybe
just
I
answer that?
wasn't
How many
clear.
Hamas soldiers have been killed
Yeah, I
in the
heard your
Gaza
question,
Strip?
Candace. I heard your question. Maybe you weren't listening or I wasn't clear. I'm usually clear when I speak, but I'll repeat it. Israel has been able to take out more than 500 Hezbollah operatives and with absolutely minimal collateral damage in Lebanon. Why is that the case, which is different from the situation in Gaza? Because Hezbollah hasn't been hiding amongst civilians yet. Hamas is, and that is why, unfortunately, Palestinian civilians in Gaza have also been killed in significant numbers, and many have been wounded. If I were you, I wouldn't use Hamas information. I wouldn't rely on Hamas statistics and to claim for them to be true.
I'm asking you, I'm not asking Hamas. How many Hamas soldiers have been killed in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, I'll answer, and it's
Now
nice
she's
that
just
we're having an interview and Piers is getting a few minutes
question.
off. According to the information that I have, and this is working numbers, I don't think that there are final numbers, and I think it will take a lot of time before a definite number of dead Hamas terrorists is given. But the best assessment that I am aware of is between 16 and 18,000 Hamas operatives that have been killed in combat in Gaza.
Oh, let's bring in Cenk. Why are you laughing?
Because that's an outrageous, ludicrous number. Even the IDF doesn't make up numbers like that. Once they said 13,000, then they went back to 9,000. And this gentleman right here just made up 16 to 18,000.
I actually want to look this up, so let's check this out. You could probably find this in a second. Share screen. And Palestinian Islamic Jihad killed 2 days ago. That's confirmed, so I'm assuming it's more. But, okay, presumably it is a high estimate, so maybe, just maybe, they're telling the truth, although I doubt it.
So Jonathan, do you concede that Israel has dictatorial control over Gaza and the West Bank, that it's a different situation than a sovereign nation that could have military or different barracks or...
Well, yeah, next time, whenever you get attacked, presumably you're opening up yourself up to the fact that when you attack Israel and kill 1,200 civilians, I would assume that they would go in and exact a heavy price, and therefore they would be occupying.
Can separate folks. It's like saying in occupied France, well, why was the resistance hiding among the civilian population. So, of course, we had to kill all the French who were
He just compared Hamas to occupied France.